Pop into the live chat and tell us who you are and where you're joining us from. And hopefully we'll figure out the technology as we go along, since it's our first live.
It's our first time. We are full of enthusiasm, low on technology, but we have the camera up and running and we're live. And that's our dog.
Brooklyn would like to protest. She says this is the time when she normally gets all the treats that she wants.
She's saying hi.
So. All right. So thank you for joining us. And let's see, it looks like we have 2 people now. Thank you for joining us tonight. My name's Charish, if you don't know me. And
I'm Joel.
And we just we thought it would be fun to start a conversation with like-minded people about travel, and especially transformational travel, to share our enthusiasm for it, to talk about how we approach travel, which is maybe a little bit different than the way that many people do. So thanks for being with us. And we thought we would start the evening by introducing you to one of our favorite dishes of all time. This is khao soy, and you can see there are some crunchy noodles on top, and there are some soft noodles in the broth. And this is a curry that's well known in northern Thailand. So, and you've had this many times. We eat it at home all the time.
Yeah. So Charish discovered it during her first trip to Thailand. What was it, 2007?
The first time I tried it was 2007. Yeah. And a friend said, "Oh, you haven't tried khao soy? You have to try this. You won't believe it." And it was so delicious. I immediately had to figure out how to make it at home.
Yeah, she brought it back from her trip to Thailand. I'd never heard of it before. And it's also called Burmese curry, but it's really popular in the north of Thailand. So she brought it back. My experience with it was her making it in our home kitchen in La Crosse, Wisconsin for a long time. And I fell in love with it. It's not what you might call typical Thai food. If you think of curries or pad Thai or anything like that, it's kind of comforting. I would call it northern. For those of you who are from Minnesota, you know what I mean. It's very warm and comforting, and it does not knock your socks off, but it's got so much flavor and complexity, and it's probably arguably ahead of pho for me, which is a soup I have not had in Vietnam, but you have. But it is probably one of my favorite comfort Thai foods of all time. And Brooklyn is talking about food.
She's our boss, so we have to appease her with treats every once in a while. Angela says it looks amazing. And Ira says he's from a lake in Minnesota.
Well, you know Ira and Ange very well. So you can get this at a few places in St. Paul, at least, for sure. But anyway, I'm going to take care of Brooklyn.
Okay.
And Charish can tell the story and like what it is and why it's so delicious and unique and interesting.
And hi to Patty B too, because I see you're in the chat. So this particular dish, which is most commonly found in Chiang Mai, Thailand, used to be kind of hard to find. And now tourists have really become aware of it. So it's become increasingly more popular. And now you really can't go to Chiang Mai without having a bowl of khao soy. So traditionally, it's made with a single chicken leg in each bowl, and then soft noodles piled on top, and the broth, which is a coconut curry broth, and then fried noodles on top. And then in addition to that, we have a plate of many toppings that are quite delicious. So traditionally, it can be mild or spicy, but if you wanted to make it spicy, what you would put on it is sort of a pan-roasted Thai chili pepper. These are really hot. Like the smaller the pepper is, kind of as a rule, the spicier it is. So our spice tolerance is pretty good, I would say, but Thai food kind of kicks us in the butt too.
Yeah.
And then you can add lime and cilantro and some shallot as well to the top of your dish.
Yeah, and so below this is soft noodles. In the middle is a kind of brown gravy, and then this is tofu. There's usually chicken, and there's crispy noodles on top. So
Yeah.
that's kind of one of the signature dishes. If for people who've traveled in Thailand extensively, like Chiang Mai, this is very well known, but it is not very well known here in the U.S., at least among non people who aren't really super interested in Thai food. But it's probably one of the great hidden gems of Thai cuisine, or all cuisine, in my opinion. It's just awesome. So
It really is.
So we're celebrating our first travel show with a little bit of
and our love
khao
of
soy.
Thai food.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to top it with lime, I would go with a key lime. The regular limes just have a different flavor profile, and this is kind of fresh and light, and the lime flavor that's closest to what you would get in Thailand. So
yeah.
Anyway, it's a very delicious dish. So I will tell you a story about the first time I had it. And Joel, you feel free to dig right in. I'll save you all from watching me eat and talk at the same time. So when I went to Thailand in 2007, I was with a group of avid travelers, and a woman, a female traveler, had said to me, you have to try khao soy. So we went to a little locally owned place. Of course, most of the places there are beautiful, local, tiny restaurants, mom and pop places. And they lovingly made this bowl of noodles that was so delicious. It absolutely blew my mind. The thing that we don't have tonight is pickled mustard greens, which are also traditionally served with this. And some people would say you can't have it without pickled mustard greens. They're a little hard to find, but I have found them at an international grocery store that we have here in Tucson. So anyway, if you ever wanted to make khao soy yourself, this is the cheats way to do it. My favorite way. We have made it from scratch, but it's a bit time consuming. So you can buy this brand of mix, and the brand name is, see, I cut it off the top of the label, but it's Lobo. So it's the same brand that makes this, and they have a full line of Thai foods and other Southeast Asian specialties. You mix this packet with some coconut cream, and you fry it in a pan, and then you braise chicken legs in there and let it cook until the chicken is super soft and falling off the bone. In our case, we added some fried tofu, and it's just as delicious because the warming spices are still there.
Yeah, that's the big thing. It's really comforting, and it's got a little zing to it, and it's really unique. So you came back from your trip to Thailand in 2007 and made it for years for both of us. And then I got to visit Thailand about in 2014, and she joined me. And so the khao soy story is that it's really popular in the northern city of Chiang Mai, which is the second largest city in Thailand, and a real food capital for Thailand. And so we got in and we arrived at this little guest house. It was called C's Guest House, and there was a husband and wife team who ran the guest house, and the husband was he's the one who checked you in, and he was very, very formal, very elegant, and he sat us down and across from his desk, and he pen and paper was checking us in, and he very carefully and lovingly produced a map and was showing us where we were, and he circled it, and here's the main part of town where you'll go for most of your tourist activities. And he was very, very sort of deliberate. It was really very sweet. But then we said, we are really interested in finding the best khao soy places. And so he's like, okay. So he circled one. He said, this is the one that most of the tourists go to. And then kind of almost off the map, he said, and here's where I like to go, but you won't go there.
You won't go there.
And we didn't. And it was very cryptic. And to this day, I wish we would have pursued it and asked him why. I think he maybe meant that it was off the tourist trail. It was for locals only, or it was just too hard to get to. But I'll never forget that, because it's one of those travel things that is a little bit lost in translation, and kind of a missed opportunity maybe to just come back and say, that place you said that we wouldn't go, we think it's going to be fine. We'd like to go there, but we didn't, because we I don't know. We just got caught up in doing other things and we laughed about it. But so that's the story of kind of the lost khao soi that we never.
The lost khao soi.
Yeah.
Well, of course we had khao soi several times on that trip. I do remember that, and we actually sought out places that were on best of lists and had a great time. Of course, you went to Thailand and had sort of a transformational experience about 10 years ago, and that's part of the reason why we wanted to have these conversations. Is we would really love to be a resource for people who are interested in traveling as we do, and maybe transforming their lives, learning about other cultures, doing sort of the deep work that can be done when you travel that can actually shift the camera for you on other things going on in your life. So that, I believe, kind of happened for you about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Well, transformational, I mean, not like a religious experience or anything, but just kind of a point in life when maybe going to more than just a few hours away or to a beach resort was necessary, although I didn't know it at the time. Charish had gone actually for a work opportunity to Thailand in about 2007 and spent a month or so there working on a project, and had been telling me for years and years and years that I needed to go. I'd always wanted to go. In fact, I think at some point in the early 2000s, I had bought like a Lonely Planet travel guide to Thailand, and I looked at it covetously for many years, and then just kind of got lost in my career and things like that and hadn't gone. But around 2013, I decided to leave the job that I had in the newspaper business, and just because it wasn't working for me. I loved the work, but anyway, a lot of reasons. So Charish was like, you need to go to Thailand, you need to go to Southeast Asia and have a transformational travel experience.
I don't think I put it that way, but
yeah,
that was what I was thinking.
She was very insistent, and she was very persistent about it. And so finally I said, okay, fine, I'll do it. I was between jobs and she had a job, so it all worked out. It's one of those, maybe those times in life that you don't get very often, which is just a chance to go do something like that. So winter, I think it was early December of 2013, I headed off to Thailand, and I had planned to go to Cambodia and Laos, and which I did. And it was just what I needed just at the right time of my life. I landed, I think it's like a 22-hour flight. You go overnight, you land, you get into Bangkok early in the morning, and you take a cab for another couple hours from the airport to your hotel. But at the airport, I had decided to get some Thai baht, some cash. So groggily, I put my cash card in, and it's one of those where the cash card sucks in your card. You get the cash, and then I walked away. And so the
card stayed.
Yeah, I get into Bangkok and I sleep, and then I wake up in the morning and just jolted awake. I'm like, I left my credit card in the airport. So we figured it out, but that was my first day. I was walking around Bangkok looking for some breakfast in the morning, and I just with this shock realized that my debit card was gone. I did have a credit card, but it was a really great trip. I can't emphasize enough that and you all know this who've traveled, whether you've traveled, to Europe or Iceland or anywhere, that you can watch travel shows and you can read books. You don't really know a place until you've gone there. And if you watch travel shows, I think most of those real high level professional ones have fixers and people who take them to places and present them with situations. When you go like that and you're on your own, and the internet was still there, but it was like, if you want to go someplace, you have to go online and find it yourself and figure out. And sometimes it might not be great. Most of the places there are great. And you just kind of relearn as an adult how to fend for yourself. I mean, I was in my early 40s, and we owned a house. I'd had a job. It wasn't like I was new to life, but it kind of makes you just have yourself in your backpack and not your debit card. So.
So the cool thing about that sort of travel, well, there are so many cool things about it, right? But that kind of travel where you are on your own, finding your own way, maybe you haven't planned it all out, so you've left room for serendipity and new information that comes to you in your travels. Maybe you meet a traveler who says, oh no, you have to go here. And because you've left flexibility in your plan, you can pivot and take advantage of those opportunities. But overall, I think that kind of travel versus luxury travel where you're coddled and everything's beautiful and you're not challenged in many ways, or a group tour where everything is prearranged for you. If you travel on your own and kind of figure it out as you go, I think that the lessons go far beyond travel. You learn, for example, the limits of your own capabilities. You learn how to push yourself outside of your comfort zone. You learn how to adjust in the moment and how to learn as you go. And I think all of those skills are transferable when you come back home, if you ever do. I don't know if we have ever. Yeah. 100%. But you can bring them home with you along with new perspective on all sorts of issues. So when you take yourself out of your standard headspace, you're able to look at problems in a different way and work through challenges in your life because you've taken yourself out of your comfort zone. I think that's so valuable.
Yeah, it was for me, it was the exact right time to do it. And it could have been anywhere, but for me, it was there. And I shouldn't say it could be anywhere. I think it needs to be someplace that's a little bit hard and difficult, but not too difficult. You want to be able to have a room and a shower, but maybe for some people it's hiking the Appalachian Trail, or maybe it's backpacking in the Sahara Desert, or you name it, any of 1,000 great places. But for me, it was Southeast Asia because Charish recommended it, and it's challenging enough. And it's if you look at a globe, it's the other side of the globe from where I grew up in the United States, literally the other side of the world. So whatever, it's 6 o'clock here in Arizona, it's probably 6 a.m. there in Bangkok. It's just everything is different. You feel like sometimes you're on the other side of the world, and getting outside of the big city of Bangkok. In fact, we spent most of our time away from there. So going up to Chiang Mai in the north, if you look at a map, that's kind of cradled by Vietnam on one side and I think Burma on the other.
Myanmar.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry. And so you feel very far away. And then you go down to the beaches down south and kind of have a little bit more of a beachy experience, but you're still very far away. I took something like Brooklyn.
Brooklyn has demands.
Come here.
Come here.
Come here. That one treat left, and then she's.
Then it's all breaking loose.
Yeah.
So the point being, of course, we want to share our joy of travel with you, but we also are interested in hearing from you what you would love to hear about if we were to do this regularly. What sort of topics would you like us to talk about, and what sort of questions might you have about us and our travel experiences? Because I think we're pretty much an open book on things. We're happy to talk about any of the destinations we've been to, or how we do planning or packing, or any of those affiliated issues. And I see Teresa's here. Hi, Teresa.
Hi, everybody.
Angela, Patty, and Ira. And I don't know who else is here because I don't see any other comments, but welcome everyone. And I'm so glad that you joined us tonight.
Thank you for joining our first attempt at just talking about something that we kind of talk about all the time amongst ourselves and with friends who've traveled. And she's been to many places, but we just wanted to build it around the theme of this one dish. But our trip to Southeast Asia, separately and together. I should mention that when I was there for 7 weeks, she came and joined me.
Well, he needed an ATM card.
Yeah, I needed money. So I needed money.
So we figured it out as we went, because you didn't have any cash. You did have your credit card. And here's the solution that we came up with, because these things happen. I know so many people who have had a machine swallow up their debit card, or they've had it stolen or lost. This is the solution that we came to. First of all, we figured out how you could withdraw cash from the credit card and I would pay it off in real time, because there is a risk with that, which is that the fees are much higher if you're taking a cash advance off of your credit card.
Yeah.
So I would pay it off every day, and he would take cash as he went along. And then eventually I flew out there with my debit card and gave it to him.
Well, I should say that we had gone through this for a while, and she says, maybe I should just come out there and, fly halfway across the world and make sure you have it.
I'll fall on that grenade anytime.
Yeah. So we had a lot of adventures, which hopefully if people are interested in hearing us keep talking going forward, we'll get into some of our further adventures in Southeast Asia, which we had many. We went down the Mekong River through Laos and did all kinds of stuff. But
on that particular trip, so you went, where did you go exactly?
Yeah. I'll give you the travel log. So you fly into Bangkok almost for sure. I think maybe if you're going to Vietnam, you might be able to fly into Ho Chi Minh City. I've never been there myself, but anyone who's on sort of the backpacker / mid-budget to budget tourist trail, you're going to start out on Bangkok. That's pretty much universal. And what a way to start. I mean, it's as exotic and different as you could possibly think or imagine, but accessible too, very friendly. They're used to Western tourists, and I can't say I ventured too far. Angela Mitchell said she would love information on a great first European trip location / itinerary. And this is the expert right here. She's been throughout Europe.
Do you want to finish your story first, and then we'll get to your questions? So keep them coming.
Well, my brief travel log was So then after a few days in Bangkok, I got onto a local, not like a tourist bus, but a local bus that went overnight from Bangkok way down to the southern beaches, where I eventually ended up at a beach town called Ha Duan on the island of Koh Phangan, which is famous for kind of being having like moon parties and the overnight backpacker. But I went to a different beach that was much quieter but the bus, first of all, I should mention the bus trip, which I said was a local bus. It wasn't a tourist bus, and it was myself and a lot of local Thai people who are going to visit family or maybe going on vacation themselves. And that on top of the experiences I've been just starting to have in Bangkok, it was unreal, just unreal, and so really wonderful. There was a young man who was going down to cook at a restaurant on the island that I was going to, and he just, without really asking, just kind of took me under his wing. We would stop at these little roadside places, and he'd just like, go here and get some noodles, and he was really, really friendly. And so we ended up taking the boat to the island from the bus together, and then so he started his job. He had traveled the 10 hours on the bus and then about 4 hours on this boat. And he got off the boat and he says, well, I have to go to work. I said, can I buy you a drink or something? He said, right now, like I'm going to work right now. So a little different world. Wow. He was not there for vacation. But so from there, I went up to Chiang Mai, which is up in the north of Thailand. And then
and Chiang Mai is super famous for beautiful Buddhist temples. I think it's a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
Yeah.
The what do they call it? The old town area of Chiang Mai, which is surrounded by a brick wall.
Yeah. And then I went to Cambodia and saw Angkor Wat and spent some time in, about 3 days in Angkor Wat in that area in Siem Reap. And we met up and went back up to northern Thailand and crossed the border and took what they call a slow boat down the Mekong River for about 2 days, which is a whole nother epic story we can tell sometime, into Luang Prabang, Laos, where I believe is where she left me. And then I finished out, we went down back to the southern beaches of Thailand, a couple different places. One was Krabi, looks like Krabi, Krabi, and we had more beach fun there. And
named after these crazy crabs that they fish for there.
Big brown crabs that don't look very appetizing.
No, even when you cook them, they don't look very appetizing.
Yeah. And then I went back to Chiang Mai. I had about 2 weeks left it was completely open-ended, which is just another cool travel experience when you get that much time. And I have to say, I'm fortunate that I had that much time. A lot of people just don't have that much time. I had open-ended 2 weeks before I had to go back. And I said, Southeast Asia was kind of my oyster at the time. It's relatively inexpensive to travel around there, take a bus, or even fly the local regional airlines. But I chose to go back to Chiang Mai to finish. And so that was 2013, 2014. I celebrated my birthday there. And yeah, so that was a great trip, and khao soy and so much great food. And yeah, and hopefully if we do the show going forward, we'll show some pictures maybe here and there. We won't be like the annoying people who are like, okay, flipping through your phone, but no, we had a question about dipping your toes into European travel.
So a great first European trip, location and itinerary. So I would say it depends on a few things. First of all, what is your budget? What is your level of travel experience? And what kind of an experience are you looking for? If you're looking for a transformational experience, it's going to be different than if you're looking for really great hotels and Michelin star food, and that sort of itinerary is going to be very different. But if you're traveling our way, generally we're on a budget because we do not have a bottomless bank account. Sometimes we don't even have access to our bank account.
And it should be said that Charish has been to the deepest Romania, and you've also been to London and Paris. So when she says there's a lot of different ways you can approach Europe, and I'm speaking for her, but she's been to the parts that maybe are a little bit more transformational, as we like to talk about, where you get lost and you don't know quite what you're doing. Or she's been to Paris as well, which is an easy first step.
So when I first went to Europe, I went to France first, because when I was in junior high, I took French class. And so that seemed like the natural first place to go. And being from the upper Midwest, of course, I had very limited travel experience and really no international travel other than Mexico at that point. And I had a gap between jobs. I had gotten laid off from a job in communications at a bank that had been acquired. And we discussed it, and I had always wanted to travel, had never had the money, had never had the time. We were very serious in our careers for many years. And I just wanted to take that time to do it. And Joel, of course, gave his blessing. So I left for a month, and my first stop was France. And of course, it immediately blew my mind. I mean, the cheese alone is a reason to go to France. So I think Paris, it's important to remember, is a really big city. Some people are disappointed by that because it has all of those big city issues. People don't clean up after their dogs. There's a lot of traffic, a lot of people. The prices are higher. There are all those issues that you have to navigate. But you also have access to some of the great art museums of the world, Musée d'Orsay, and of course, the Louvre, which is super famous. And those are a great reason to go. The food is amazing. Even if you are not a seasoned traveler, I think the road rises to meet you when you go to places like London and Paris, because they're so well traveled and they know what tourists need and what they can provide to make your trip better and more luxurious even. So that's a great route to go. I think hitting the big cities. On that first trip, I went to, where did I go? I went to France, Italy, and Germany. And then I came back to France, and Joel met up with me, which was wonderful. We met up in Paris and hung out for about 4 days, and then he had to go back to work. So it was a romantic weekend, essentially, in Paris. That was a wonderful itinerary. Italy was also mind-blowing. Of course, the cities there are really well-traveled, to the point even where with a lot of these places, you're going to run into over-tourism. So if you're not down with that, if big crowds kind of weird you out and you'd rather have just a little more breathing room, consider going in the shoulder season, I would say, or the off season. You'll get lower prices. The crowds are less. And honestly, I think it's more comfortable because temperature wise, it's a little bit cooler.
Yeah.
Or to even go in the off season in winter and see see those mega cities in the winter might be really interesting and a totally different travel experience.
I will say that I've not been with you on these trips, but Andrew's looking for an itinerary.
Yeah.
Probably the thing you talk about the most out of most of your European trips is like the Cinque Terre in Italy,
Yep.
and the Amalfi Coast. And I would say, like, maybe you can speak to this, but building an itinerary to plan for the whole of Europe is probably not doable. So maybe there's regions that you want to check out, or maybe there's an approach you want to take. Like, I want to see great architecture, but one place she talks about the most is the Amalfi Coast, I think, in Cinque Terre in Italy.
Spectacular and worth visiting. Places like Venice and Rome are so over-toured, it might be off-putting to you. Places like the Cinque Terre and Amalfi Coast are just a little bit harder to get to, and the crowds are slightly smaller. I don't have any research to back that up. That's just a gut feeling based on my personal experience. But I would agree with you, when you're looking at an entire itinerary, it's important to think about how much time you have and not try to bite off too much. So I think what's really common among travelers is to go to sort of Google, how many days do I need in Rome? And then go to Rome for 3 nights or whatever. My approach and your approach, I think, too, is that we prefer an immersive experience and a chance to really relax into the space, get to know a couple of locals, stake out a local coffee shop and go there every morning so the owner recognizes you when you walk in the door and you get a feel for the neighborhood, and then staying at family-run hotels or Airbnbs, something that feels a little more local and a little more authentic as an experience.
Yeah. So per the question, what would be like 3 first European itineraries? Like, are you thinking 2 weeks?
Probably. So let's say 2 weeks. I wouldn't, if you had 2 weeks, honestly, I would go to Italy for the full 2 weeks. Italy is so diverse. Each city has something interesting and beautiful to offer. I would hike the Cinque Terre, which is a national park. You buy a park pass and you hike you hike from city to city and stop along the way and have lunch and a glass of wine and then continue hiking. It's like the most beautiful hiking trip you could ever take. And you're in these cliffside villages and there's great seafood. It's really beautiful. It does require a bit of effort. You're climbing up essentially a cliffside where they grow grapes, and you'll walk through olive groves. It's really beautiful. I would do that. You have to go to Rome, right? I really think Rome is a must-see in a person's life because there are so many just jaw-dropping historical places to see.
Would you fly into Rome?
That's a really good question.
And the Cinque Terre is on the western coast?
It is on the western coast, yeah. So I would say fly into Rome, but usually the way that we approach flying into a place, if we have flexibility in our schedule, is we'll use an app like Skyscanner or Google Flights and go to the maps or explore option and see what city is cheapest to fly into for the dates that we're considering, and then kind of build the itinerary around that. I'm assuming almost everybody has a budget they need to work within. And so I think your travel across the pond is generally the biggest chunk of your expense, especially if you're choosing affordable family-run hotels or Airbnbs or hostels. That's going to take the biggest bite out of your budget. So if you can manage it on the front end, you have a little more money for wine and food.
Yeah, and Cinque Terre means it's 5 towns.
Yes.
No, I've not been there, but I just wanted, I'm thinking as someone who wouldn't know. 5
towns, and you can even stay in one of those towns and sort of hike to the others from wherever you establish your the place where you're going to live for the week or so. So if you wanted to add on another city, if you're a beginning traveler, definitely Paris is worth seeing. I love the Montmartre area, the Sacré-Cœur, the famous cathedral at the top of the hill. Absolutely beautiful. If you wanted an experience that was a little more off the beaten track, I would consider Eastern Europe. Yeah. How about you? What are your thoughts on that?
I've been to Poland, and that's it. Poland is great. It's easy. You can do there's really three main cities, unless you really want to do Poland. But if you're talking about a couple weeks, you can easily do it in a couple weeks, and it's very friendly. My thoughts there, where I can see why they relocated to kind of the Midwest. That you feel maybe there's a language barrier, but that's about it. They kind of have the same sort of values. It looks like Minnesota and Wisconsin. There's a lot of, the forests look kind of the same when you I was able to take the train from all the way down in Krakow, all the way up through Warsaw, and then up to, it's called Gdansk now, on the Baltic Sea. And that takes the better part of a day. It's not huge, just like a really large U.S. state. And the people are very friendly. Krakow, however you want to say it, is very, very touristy, European tourists mostly, but it's beautiful. It's an old medieval city that was not, raised by World War II. So I liked Poland a lot. And if you're looking for something like, what do I do that's not what everyone else is doing? If Paris, Italy, Spain, whatever, Poland is a good place to start. We have a question from
it's a really
Teresa.
Good place. Okay, Teresa says, where is the place that surprised you most when you traveled the off the beaten path? That's a really good question.
I'm going to guess your answer.
Okay.
I think your answer is Croatia.
Yeah, it did blow my mind. I think that's true. And I will say Zadar, Croatia, and Zagreb are the two cities that I went to in Croatia. And I would say Zadar blew my mind the most. It's so beautiful. And it's not that it's necessarily off the tourist track, it's that it's off the American tourist track. So most American tourists never think to go there. When I went there, blew my mind. Your seaside, the water is absolutely crystal clear. The food is delicious. The prices are lower than other parts of Europe. And along the seashore, they've actually built a sea organ. They call it a sea organ into the steps leading down to the water. And so when a boat passes and when the waves kind of start to develop a chop, you hear this beautiful melody emanating from the sea organ. It is one of the most beautiful, spellbinding places. Absolutely gorgeous. I would highly recommend it.
Well, Teresa, I would say a place that is actually not surprising, but I'll give you why it's surprising. Is Ireland is not surprising because it's probably the one or of the few. I haven't traveled nearly as much as she has, but of the places I've gone, it's the place that it's what you think it's going to be. It's exactly what you think it's going to be in the best possible way. It is beautiful. The people are friendly. But what I would say is, you asked about the place that surprised you most when you traveled off the beaten path. We got to a few of those places in Ireland because we had rented a car, which this is a whole other show about our driving through Ireland adventures. But we got to a little town called Skibbereen, which is in County Cork on one of the western peninsulas there that reaches out into the sea. And it was in this package. It was a package tour that we had that gave you many, many options. So you didn't have to go here, here, and here. You could kind of choose your a la carte places, hotels that you stayed in. Well, we got to this little town called Skibbereen, and we checked in. It seemed like we were some of the few Americans who made their way to this place. And then we found this little Irish pub straight out of a movie or a book, what have you. And we sat down, we ordered some drinks, and they said they didn't say this in an aggressive way at all, very friendly. They're like, what are you doing here?
Why are you here?
Yeah,
they couldn't believe we had stayed there.
Yeah, because it just wasn't a place. We chose something that seemed very far flung. And it was, the surprising part is they were so wonderful. And this was a place where it was really just locals only. And we somehow found it. And the surprising part was how great it was. They were so wonderfully nice to us. And, just probably one of my top 5 travel experiences of all times. And so Ireland is definitely on the beaten path as far as American tourists, but this was a place in Ireland that was off the beaten path, and it was just like you almost felt like you were home. It was wonderful.
It felt like exactly like what you picture Ireland is, but when you're there, you think they've only created this for tourists. This can't be real.
Right.
This is manufactured. But if you go to one of those littler cities, like Skibbereen isn't super small, but if you go to a place like that where they're off of the tourist track, you actually realize it's real.
Yeah, Skibbereen. And exactly, I was going to say the same thing, which is you think sometimes that it's like a stage play or something where it's like, oh, places everyone, here come the tourists. And they're not like that, but there was no way that could have, even if they were in Ireland, and they're not, maybe on Temple Bar in Dublin, they kind of, they exaggerate the whole thing, but you think, is this real? But Skibbereen, it wouldn't have been possible for them to say places everyone, places, because they didn't know any Americans were coming. And we walked into this place, and it was the Irish bar, or the Irish pub of everyone's dreams. And it was not contrived. It wasn't like, okay, here are the coming tourists. Like everyone make their accent a little bit heavier, make sure you have a Guinness in front of you. They did, and they weren't expecting us. And so it was surprising in the most wonderful way. Ireland is great, and we'll probably some future show, if we decide to, we'll definitely talk about it, because it's really, as you can tell, we both loved it a lot.
We did have one really cool experience in that very pub, which was we were there quite late, and all of a sudden somebody said the constable was coming, and so they shut off the music and turned down the lights, and everybody got quiet until the constable passed. And we were part of that. We got to experience that in Ireland, which was amazing.
Right. And so it was I know that I know kind of situation. So the constable was probably, it probably happened every night. And it was like, hey, as long as you're not too loud, as long as you pretend to be closed. And you could see him. Again, it was just like a movie. And there are so many moments in Ireland that are like that. You think, is this a movie? But you could see his shadow walk past the two thin windows in front of the bar along the street. And as soon as he passed, everything started up again. And it was a wink, wink. I know what's going on. Just take it easy. And then we started up again, and it was like there was no, you could be as late as you wanted. And I think it was a weeknight, and we were probably there till 1 or 2. And
vacation hours, right?
And they're very friendly and very glad to see you. And it was, so that was surprising in a way of just like, wow, this really is. This is how it is. So Angela responded that Italy sounds like a perfect place to start. It's a really great place. Again, I would recommend shoulder season probably for Italy. The summers in Europe have gotten really, really hot, as they have in many places. So that it's important to take that under consideration. I will say I've not been to Italy. She has a couple times, and just objectively, you talk about as much as you talk about any place.
Yeah.
Southeast Asia, and you've been to the Middle East, you've been all over the place. She talks about them in different ways, but as far as just like we watch a lot of travel TV, and whenever Cinque Terre comes on, she just kind of gets this dreamy look in her eyes, and she's like, I want to go. Like, let's go right now.
Yeah.
So the Cinque
it is
Terre,
a happy place.
I don't even know if the names of those 5 towns are knowable, but
yeah, they are.
Yeah, or I mean, off the top of your head. But
we stayed in. What city was it? No, I was going to say one, and now I'm double guessing myself. All right, my friends Brenda and Alex would remember. I would have to look it up. Okay, watching from Indiana, you two are.
It's Tony.
Oh,
Idaho.
You two are amazing. Oh, hi Tony. And Teresa says Ireland is on our bucket list. You need a show on that adventure. We have a lot to say about Ireland, including talking about the shortest marital argument we've ever had. It was 3 words exchanged between the two of us. So we'll save that story. Did it get spicy?
A little spicy.
Get a little chilly in the throat. Ira says, love the show. I have a 2-part question. You take this one.
Yeah. Excuse me. Sorry. I
All
swallowed
right, drink some water.
We sometimes use travel guides, but as far as travel books, yeah, love travel books.
I love travel books. We have a ridiculously huge collection of travel books. So Lonely Planet, any Rick Steves guides. I like those for an experience that's closer to the cultural bone.
Yeah. And if you're talking about like fictional books or memoirs, what are some of the ones you like? We're kind of up and down on was it Paul Thoreau?
Well, he's such a crusty old dude. I love his writing and I love his storytelling, but after a while, he's just so grumpy about everything, and that wears on me. So it's not very fun to read about somebody who's grumpy about traveling the world, right?
Yeah, I mean he's worth reading. Paul Thoreau. He's done a lot of travel writing over the years, and I read it. He wrote a novel about I don't know, maybe 20 years ago about, I don't know if it was based on his own life, but running a hotel, like a Howley running a hotel in Hawaii. It was a fictional book, but his travel memoirs are sometimes like really unflattering, but I think he's trying to give you a good idea of the places that like maybe he's trying to go the opposite direction of travel hosts or people who gush about everything.
Mm.
But yeah, in fact, well, this is a teaser, but I have a travel book right here. I personally love just having a book and in my hands as far as travel, like a travel guide. But sometimes once you get there and you kind of find your way around, you kind of stop using a little bit, especially if you talk to people. I'm not an extrovert really, but I try to be like, well, where should I go? In fact, I've emailed or messaged Airbnb hosts before, and I said, like, I really want to go where the locals go and I don't want to be among the tourists. And always they seem like, well, that's cool. And right away, I mean, I'm talking about this has happened 3 or 4 times. Right away, I get this long list of like, they get very excited and they send you, well, here's where you should go if you want to avoid the tourists, because let's face it, everybody who lives in a tourist town has a love-hate relationship with tourists. So yeah. And then the second part is, do the Twins have any chance of turning things around again this summer? Well, man, I think their pitching has just collapsed, and that's probably, yeah. I mean, I think they got to bring back like Bernansky and some of those guys. I don't know if our favorite guy Gene Larkin is available. I think he's coaching Legion right now in the cities, but Gene Larkin would be a great addition, Ira. If they could bring him back, he's probably good for a good solid month to get him back right up there.
I love that the show has turned into sports talk now.
Hey, it's sports talk.
So, and you actually have some upcoming travel, but before we talk about that, I'm interested in hearing from everybody who's here with us what your plans are for the holiday weekend, if you have any travel plans, or what near you is a good time over the 4th of July holiday, if you had recommendations for other travelers. And Ira says, thank you. And he agrees with you. That's because you're the man.
It's turned into a sports talk show now. So. Yeah. What's everyone doing over the 4th? And is anyone having a sort of longer vacation this summer that you want to talk about? Or
Teresa says, no travel, many tourists in our town.
To tend to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our Teresa is up northern Minnesota. So yeah, they're probably overrun with tourists right now. So
it's a double-edged sword, right? Tourists bring money into the city, so that's a good thing. They help create jobs, but it definitely can create some growing pains. And we're kind of seeing that play out in Europe right now, where you're seeing some backlash, especially in places like Spain, Barcelona, where they're actually shooting tourists with water guns as a message that they're a little bit tired of the over-tourism. Let's see. Angela says, lakes in Minnesota, best spot to be over the 4th. Very true. We've been on Minnesota lakes on the 4th of July.
We have.
On and around.
Yeah.
And that's...
And Charish is from Brainerd. And yeah, her brother got us out on a boat more than a few times over the 4th. And it's just, yeah, there's nothing better. For sure.
So we went out around the 4th of July with your dad once in a fishing boat with who was his friend that we went with?
Oh, his name was David.
David. And I think, were we in your dad's boat or David's boat?
We were on his friend David's boat.
Yeah,
we were out on Lake Minnetonka.
On Lake
Minnetonka.
So that was great, but I shot off a bottle rocket and it went awry. And a nearby boater wasn't very happy with me. It didn't hit them. It came close though. So just, be safe out there.
Yeah. And maybe as we wrap up, one of the things that Charish mentioned that I want to circle back to, I hate that I just said circle back. So
what would be our new phrase
so
for
office
that?
space.
Yeah. Well,
cycle forth or something. I don't know, but
corkscrew around.
Charish mentioned shoulder season and off season, and one of the coolest things, if you can do it, there's high season is high season for a reason. I'm gonna have that stitched on a blanket. High season is high season for a reason. It's when everyone has time off and things, but we've been, and I'm sure everyone here has been someplace where it's maybe low season, but I'll never forget. There's been a couple times plan on watching fireworks from my front porch. Petty, that's a good one. Yeah.
That is a good one.
Yeah. So we were up in Bayfield, Wisconsin, which is very much like northern Minnesota or a lot of tourist places, Door County, whatever you can think of. That's a real tourist mecca in the summer in the Midwest. And I think it was one weekend or so, like after Labor Day.
Yeah. And
they were still up and running, but there was this feeling of exhaustion and elation and kind of buckling down. And it's kind of a neat thing to be a part of as a tourist when you're there just at the beginning of the off season. I had the same experience in Cape Cod in late October. There is a little bit of a tourist burst around for like the leaf peepers, they call them, and then Halloween. But my uncle and I were there just after all that, and it was just the beginning of the quiet season. And we were talking to the owner of this great little bar on Cape Cod, and he just was like, "We're just exhausted, but we're glad the season's over. But we also know that that's when you make your money." But you could just tell all the servers and all the service people, it's just like this feeling of like, oh. And it's kind of cool to be there if you can take the right approach to it and be like, look, I'm not gonna we're not gonna make you work too hard. We're here to relax too. But it's really cool. I'm not describing it very well, but it's really cool to be in a place when it's just kind of the start of the off season and to see that, because now you're kind of seeing the other side rather than that same guy a month ago was running around with his like a chicken with his head cut off. And now he was just he almost wanted to sit down with us and be like, oh, so. Right. But people
have their guard up during the high season, but in the off season, you see them more relaxed and they have more time to actually have a conversation with you. Yeah. And that's nice. And Angela, I had another thought for you, which is, you may be aware of this, but in Europe, the high season is especially terrible it's July and August, right? Mm-hmm. Like everybody in Europe takes 6 weeks off of work. And so I would not recommend Europe during that time period. Super hot, prices are high, hard to find a room, very crowded.
Yeah, I had the same experience about that off season. Yeah, it's cool. It's hard to describe. I didn't describe it very well, but you kind of feel like there's a camaraderie and you're glad to be there. And when I was on Cape Cod, a lot of things were closed, but enough was open to balance it out and make it kind of wonderful, really. And they're happy to see you, but they're just kind of like, I need a nap. And so but talking about off season, and that's the very deepest part of the off season in northern Minnesota. You wouldn't want to because there's just nothing going on. And
you could. So. I really think
no, you could, yeah.
The intrepid traveler might be interested in that experience. What is it like to be in northern Minnesota when it's 20 below and doesn't get above zero during the day? That's kind of a cool experience, right? A novel experience that you can't really get everywhere, can't get in a lot of places.
Yeah. And we lived through that. We lived.
We survived.
Yeah, and we lived in a place. We lived in La Crosse, Wisconsin, for quite a few years, and it's not maybe quite the tourist destination as northern Minnesota is, but they have something called Oktoberfest, where I think the town probably quadruples in size, and you can kind of see the run up to it. You can see them putting up decorations, and you can see the workers kind of like, okay, here we go. And then it's 2 weekends of wall-to-wall craziness, probably second only to the real Oktoberfest in Germany. And then, but as a resident, you go to these places a couple days later, and so yeah, off season is kind of a whole interest. It's a fascination for both of us. I'm not sure why, but it's just kind of
it's a different experience, and
Mhm.
I think you get more of an immersive experience in the off season, and you can just, it's just totally different from high season.
Mhm.
It's a very cool thing. So so a question that I have for everyone who is here is, if you would be interested in future chats with Joel and Cherish about travel, what sort of topics, like larger topics, would you like us to tackle? Are there specific destinations that you'd like to see a whole show on? I heard Ireland. I heard
Off-season reasons.
off-season reasons. I think we could build a whole show around most of the places that we've
Mhm.
been, and we've been to many.
Yeah.
I know that we could do a show about Mexico, the multiple destinations that we've seen. Probably most of these people have been there, but if you haven't, or maybe there are some places that you haven't had the chance to check out, we could talk about those as well.
Yeah, we can dive back into Ireland. We can do lots more on Europe. That seems to be, you could probably build out some further itineraries. We've dabbled in South America, although we spent a month in Peru. We did the Machu Picchu Inca Trail.
We hiked the Inca Trail.
Whole different thing. Yeah. And she's been all over the place too. We've gone to Iceland, which I know some of our audience has been to Iceland,
and Iceland is a marvel.
Yeah, Iceland is great. And that's another place, much like the Cinque Terre, where we kind of get that dreamy look in our eyes. And I kind of want to go there in winter when it's dark the whole time. I have this weird obsession with just diving into it like that. I wouldn't want to be there when it's light 24 hours, but the darkness just appeals to me. No, maybe I would go insane. Maybe I would, but I just that whole, it appeals to me. So, but no, we were there in May, so it was more light than dark, but it had a decent balance. So there was nighttime, and gosh, that is, I mean, we could spend a whole another hour just on Iceland, but yeah.
Yeah, I would say the window of darkness in Iceland was short, because we went out at about 10 o'clock at night, and it was still like midday sunshine. It was so weird, but very cool. Places to stay in besides a hotel. We could do a whole show on that. Maybe not the Bates. That's funny. Yeah, we would have a ton of recommendations on how to choose places if you really want an immersive experience.
Yeah, that's a good question, Teresa.
How to save money.
Yeah, and it's not. And it's not just hitting the easy button and say, oh, look on Airbnb. No, there are. You can actually do like legitimate hotels, but I think there is a trick, and that's a good question, Teresa.
Yeah, that would be a great show.
There's a trick to finding ones that aren't just like the big square box hotel. There's little inns and things like that, and you kind of have to know what to look for. And sometimes you have to be willing to be like, oh, there's no TV in this room, but it's relatively inexpensive. But Airbnb is a good way to go too. But that can sometimes be the easy button. And if you look for, I think there's little codes you have to kind of look when you're looking online. You can kind of tell. Yeah. And we can get into that a little bit more about like, well, this is a traditional hotel, but it's not one of those where you're going to be paying too much for too little.
And Ira recommends Off-Season Reasons as a good topic. That's a perfect title. Thank you for that, Ira. Let's do it, Joel, he says.
Yeah, Iceland in the winter.
Iceland is really amazing. So, okay, we've bent your ear for an hour. You've watched us eat. We're so grateful that you joined us tonight, and it's been so fun to talk about travel, our favorite topic. And we'll let you know when we set up another broadcast. You have a trip on the horizon.
Yeah, we're gonna try to engineer a way for me to do it live from here. I don't know
if we can,
but yes. So teaser, I'll be going there at the end of this month. So I will bring back a full report. And yeah, thank you guys for joining us. This is really fun. We love to talk about travel, and Charish was like, let's do it live. And I was like, what? And
why not?
It's so
right?
fun. So
we're past being embarrassed by.
Yeah, that's the thing. We don't care.
Yeah, we don't care anymore. Yeah,
we're just talking to friends.
Yep.
So, thank you guys.
Love you guys.
Thank
you so much. Have a great night.